Assassin's Creed Mirage is here, and currently it's sitting at a 77 average on Metacritic, and by that definition, that means most people do like the game. That being said, that doesn't mean everybody likes the game. So welcome back to another edition of Bad Reviews for Good Games, and today we're taking a look at what the haters have to say for Assassin's Creed Mirage. All right, so for our first review, we don't even need to scroll far. It's right at the top. This one's worth reading. It comes from Wreck-It Ralph, and he says, the game adds nothing new and is clunkier than the originals. The story seems like it was written by AI and none of the characters have any personality. Whoever voiced Roshan sounds like a frog. She must smoke about 9 packs of cigarettes a day. 2 out of 10. What I agree with the record, which, hold on. You're mad. Yo, relax, dude. It's just a game. It's just a game. What I do agree with on this one is the game adds nothing new and clunkier than the originals. Assassin's Creed Mirage is interesting, right? Because if you go online, there's no in between. You'll find people who seem to really like it, and then you'll find people who just don't really seem to like it like that. And I'm kind of in the camp, I'm not really liking this one like that. It's not like terrible, but like you said, it adds nothing new and it's clunkier than the originals. And, you know, for a game that's, you know, touting it's the boots to the ground, return to form, you know, the basics of the parkour, you would think that would be smooth if you're not going to add anything original. I think it's cool that they went back to boots on the ground, but I do also think they should have added something to make Basim unique compared to other assassins. As far as the story being written by AI, I'm not far enough in the game to comment on that, but that is pretty fucking funny. Is that like the new insult? This shit is written by AI when it's really bad. And then Roshan, I understand, like, so your master assassin who actually teaches Basim how to actually become an assassin in the game, she sounds like this, like she sounds like you got a hold of her voice, because it does sound like, I get it, like I don't get why she had that voice like that. I also don't agree with the 2 out of 10. I mean, based off what I played, I'd give it like 5.5, 6. I don't agree with the 2, but yeah, shout out to Wreck-It Ralph. All right, so this one's pretty interesting. It comes from Pain9, and it's interesting because I spotted what looked like Japanese characters, so I went ahead and opened up Google Translate and I put it in there. And what Google is translating this sentence to is, this is the ultimate Assassin's Creed. Now, this review is interesting because they're calling it the ultimate Assassin's Creed, but Pain gave it a 0 out of 10. Tad bit of sarcasm. Juanito gave the game a 4 out of 10, and he says, if you haven't played Ragnarok, don't play this game. You won't find out anything. The story is nonsense. No, what is nonsense is your review, because the game you're referring to is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There is no Assassin's Creed Ragnarok. I get it, Vikings, maybe that's why you confuse things, but there is a game called God of War Ragnarok. You might be on the wrong page in terms of these reviews. Joe the Critic gave it a 4 out of 10, and he said, while I like the idea of going back to the core elements of Assassin's Creed, I feel like this was a poor way of doing it. The characters feel bland and two-dimensional, the campaign is short and predictable, and the gameplay loop is very underwhelming. Now, I gotta give you some pushback. I don't think you can complain that the campaign, you can be mad that it's predictable. You can't complain that it's short when they said it was gonna be short, so I don't know what you were expecting there. If you play for a while, you'll notice that there's only one type of finisher animation that you repeatedly use after a parry, which I agree with. I noticed that very early on in the game. The combat in this game is ass, and I think they purposely made it ass to force you to play stealthy, which is lazy gameplay design, by the way. But when you parry an attack, you basically can just walk behind the enemy, like it slows down time, and then you can just like stab him in the back. It's the same animation over and over. It would have been nice to get some type of variation. How are you a master assassin, but you only know one move? The game has also only 2 types of weapons, a sword and a dagger. All variants of these, which there are only 6 respectively, share the same animation and feel. I think that's a fair criticism, especially coming from the other Assassin's Creed games. There's so many different weapon types, from swords, daggers, to like heavy weapons like axes and stuff like that. Give you some nice variation to switch it up for your assassin. The old engine that's being used also hurts the game, as the graphics and physics feel dated and can't even come close to other next-gen games. I don't know if I agree with that. I think it does look good. I think the game does look good for the most part. I do like the way that Baghdad looks. I like the way that Basim, not the way he's animated, but like the way he looks, if that makes sense. I think graphically it's good enough. At least I'm playing on No, I'm playing on Xbox Series X. Conclusively, this game did a poor job of going back to its roots, making it feel basic, boring, and forgettable. For the most part, I do agree with that. Like I said, I don't mind that it's going back to the roots, back to boots to the ground, but you also have to add something new. It's not enough to just, you know, nostalgia bait. You got to add something. You got to build upon those layers, kind of similar to what they did with Assassin's Creed 1 going to Assassin's Creed 2. This feels like it's trying to be Assassin's Creed 1 again, and I'm gonna be honest, you know, I enjoyed it for its time. It was great for its time, but I don't want to play Assassin's Creed 1 again. So the next review comes from I Hate Penguins. He gave it a 1 out of 10. Weird name, by the way. Who hates penguins? They're nice creatures. What? I like to move it. Anyways, he says, awful combat system, awful story, awful animations, parkour is everything but smooth. Unity released 10 years ago and is much better. I'm gonna go play that instead. Now, I wanted to highlight this one because specifically he brought up Unity, and I agree. We actually talked about it on the recent Gaming Illuminati podcast, youtube.com/GI updates. And I was talking about how Unity is a 10-year-old game and that still has the best movement system in Assassin's Creed. And one of my biggest issues with Mirage is this dude just does not know how to climb. He's constantly getting caught in the geometry of the world. He's like husky. He just doesn't know how to move. He's a bad assassin. And I also wanted to highlight this video. So like, if you don't believe that Unity still has the best movement system 10 years later, the game did launch buggy. If those who've been around for a long time, you know, I teared into Unity because when it launched, it was buggy. But since then, it's been 10 years. They patched the hell out of this game. It's a completely different game now. It's much better. There was a video that's been uploaded by the YouTuber named Stealthy Wiley. Shout out to him. Go show him some love. And the title of the video is "These two games are 10 years apart." And in this video, he basically shows off the animations, the parkour animations of Arno and Assassin's Creed Unity, as well as like the different little cool stabbing anime, like you slide a swoop. That's fire. You cannot do stuff like that. And then all this little stuff right here. And then he compares it to like Mirage, like 10 years later, and just how basic and bland and boring. Because there's one thing to say it. Sometimes I feel like people need to actually visually see the lack of effort that was in this game. So for this review, I completely agree. Check out Stealthy Wiley's video. These two games are 10 years apart because he does a great job of depicting the issues with Assassin's Creed Mirage compared to the older games, man. Which, by the way, Unity still looks good 10 years later if like you're playing on the PC version of the game. Radiant gives the game a 2 out of 10, and he says, while the perceived return to stealth basics is a fair effort along with the condensed story, it's nothing we haven't seen before in the franchise. I agree. This was a needless entry. I agree. Obviously designed to shut down the older fan base. Effects like sand and fire come across as generic knockoffs of the titles like Origins and Valhalla have managed to nail successfully. Having to stick with that, what ended up being, I can't read. Having to stick with what I ended up getting here and my exhaustion attempts to make it work only succeeded in making me feel nauseous. If you want to make a return to roots, play the older games over again. Damn, he said he pulled a Jay-Z on you. He said, if you want to hear my old music, go buy my old album. Jay said something along the lines of that. Those days are long gone, and it shows very well with Mirage. Basically what I said earlier, like, I don't want to play Assassin's Creed 1 again. You guys have some weird memories of that. Like, it was a cool foundation, but it's not as good as you guys remember. The series really took off with Assassin's Creed 2. And then he goes on to say, you know, if this was DLC, then I could understand, which, fun fact, and this is why I highlighted this comment, it was DLC. And if this game was just like $20 DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because that's originally what it was. If it was just $20 DLC, if they would have stuck to the original plan, I would have graded this on a different scale instead of a full release, and I think everybody else would have as well, but it's just been like a nice bonus. But somewhere along development, I think midway through, they said, oh, we got enough content here that it's its own game. First of all, nobody likes Basim. I've learned, so I didn't beat Valhalla because the game glitched out on me, so I had to watch it on YouTube. I got a game-breaking bug, but I found from making my video about Mirage that a lot of people didn't even like Basim, so I was confused to why Basim got his own game. I don't like him after playing the damn game. This was originally supposed to be DLC, and it should have stayed that way, but I truly believe that Ubisoft looked at the books and they said, you know, we don't have anything coming out for a while until that Star Wars game, because that Avatar game probably ain't gonna sell. So we need to put out something that we know is going to print money. Assassin's Creed, baby. It's no longer DLC. It's a full game. Mirage. Ooh. The next review comes from Techno, who's an asshole, and not because he gave Assassin's Creed Mirage a 0 out of 10. It's because it says, spoiler alert in his review. This review contains spoilers. So we click read more, right? I'm a little worried because, I haven't finished the game yet. Visuals and audio, he gives it a 7. Other than that, the game is actually a 0. I regret playing this game. It's the worst Assassin's Creed. Spoiler alert. He said this shit garbage. So Reddy gave the game a 4 out of 10. And he said the combat system is so boring in comparison. The world is beautiful and truly makes me feel like I'm playing an OG Assassin's Creed game, but the combat system is terrible. No ability to block. Fights are meaningless as you will need to wait to counter to kill everyone else. So basically it sounds like he's a bigger fan of some of the newer Assassin's Creed games because he keeps bringing up mainly the combat. And I agree though, the combat system is terrible. I get that they wanted people to go back to stealth, but that doesn't mean you have to make the combat absolutely horrible. Like just give him less combat tools compared to like Valhalla and Odyssey, but like to go all the way in the other direction, it doesn't make sense in the sense of the lore. I think that's what the real issue with the combat is. This man literally cannot do anything in combat, and that makes no sense because he's a trained assassin. A trained assassin is gonna get it by any means necessary. And the crazy part is too, literally at the beginning of the game, you have to go through a whole training montage inside of the Hidden Ones, the Assassin Brotherhood. You have to go through a whole training montage learning combat. There's literally cutscenes where you're training with, what is it, Rashan, the master assassin of that headquarters, and you're literally sword fighting with her. So it makes no sense why this dude doesn't know how to fight in the game. So I think this is a 100% criticism I agree with. Contextually, it makes no sense in the context of the story, and it's just not fun. Exelo81 gave it a 4 out of 10, and this review I completely disagree with. He says, just a mobile game disguised as a new Assassin's Creed chapter. Ubisoft is switching to mobile, and this Assassin's Creed is a technical step down in every aspect. The only reason for not to develop an improved Assassin's Creed RPG is because mobile CPU couldn't manage as well. CPU couldn't manage well such games? We got to work on that sentence structure. Anyways, I completely disagree with this review. You're allowed to dislike the game. I'm never going to argue down on that. My issue with this review is it seems like you're just trying to push some anti-mobile gaming agenda. It is true, Ubisoft is working on an Assassin's Creed mobile game called Assassin's Creed Jade. It actually does not look bad. I'm looking forward to playing it. That being said, this game was never a mobile game. It was never held back by mobile hardware. It was originally Assassin's Creed Valhalla DLC, and that's the reason it's half-baked, because they decided to make it a full game. But this was never supposed to be like a mobile game, and like the iPhone or the Android somehow was holding back the technical aspects of the game. You totally made that up. And this is why it's important not to just look at numbers, but read people's reviews, because unfortunately, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Next review comes from MDK567, 2 out of 10. Bunch of characters, didn't know what it said, threw it in Google Translate, and here's what we got. I want to know what I want to know. I want to know what I want to know next door. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why you cannot rely on Google Translate, because I'm willing to bet a paycheck that this is not accurate. First of all, it sounds like, I want to know what I want to know. It sounds like a remix of that shit. What the fuck is this shit, Google? Maximilian gives Assassin's Creed Mirage a 1 out of 10, and he says he doesn't like it. It feels like a pain in the butt playing it. My question is, how do you know what that pain in the butt feels like? Are you stuffing game cartridges up your ass? The world needs to know. And that's just what some of the haters had to say about Assassin's Creed Mirage. I agreed with some of it, but I disagree with some of it as well, and that's okay because we're all entitled to our own opinion. Matter of fact, I have my own opinion on Assassin's Creed Mirage, and if you want to hear my more in-depth thoughts on the latest Assassin's Creed game, click the card on the screen and check out my latest edition of Before You Install, where I share my impressions of Assassin's Creed Mirage. Just click the card on the screen and hook a brother up with some watch time. Because Lord knows, I need it, man. I need that shit.